Imagine dropping thousands of dollars to attend the 2026 World Cup in Mexico, only to realize that stepping just a few blocks away from the stadium plunges you into a deadly no-go zone. A place where your life is worth less than a match ticket, and the rule of law simply doesn't exist. Behind the billion-dollar stadiums and the glossy, hyper-sanitized campaigns broadcasted by FIFA lies a chilling reality. The ultimate puppet masters of the world's biggest sporting event are not the politicians or the organizers. They are some of the most ruthless drug cartels on the planet. Don't let the flashy tourism brochures fool you. Just a few miles from those glamorous VIP lounges, and mere blocks away from the neon-lit fan zones, lies an entirely different universe. A world governed by unspoken, lethal laws. A world where police sirens offer no comfort, and where heavily armed syndicates have already cast their nets, waiting to prey on the massive influx of naive international tourists carrying pockets full of cash. In today's investigative deep dive, we are crossing that red line. We are peeling back the thick layers of state propaganda to see exactly who is pulling the strings of the 2026 World Cup when the stadium lights fade to black. When FIFA announced that Mexico would co-host the 2026 World Cup alongside the U.S. and Canada, it was a masterclass in modern psychological spin. Broadcasts showcased the legendary Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, a cathedral of football steeped in history. The ultra-modern Estadio Akron in Guadalajara, blending seamlessly into lush green hills, and Monterrey's Estadio BBVA, an architectural marvel sitting in the shadow of majestic mountains. To lock in the bid, the Mexican government spared absolutely no expense, embarking on one of the most aggressive security overhauls in modern history. Billions of dollars were poured into upgrading infrastructure. Entire local police forces were rebranded, armed with military-grade gear, and retrained specifically as tourist protection units. Thousands of heavily armed National Guard troops will be deployed. They are turning the perimeters of these stadiums into what can only be described as a football DMZ, an impenetrable, highly engineered bubble of safety. Inside this artificial dome, you can drink, sing, and celebrate, completely insulated from the harsh reality of the country you are visiting. But an illusion, no matter how expensive or heavily armed, cannot erase geography. A stadium is a fortress, but that fortress is only as safe as the land immediately outside its walls. If you look closely at the tourist maps handed out at the airport, you'll notice strange anomalies. Blank spaces, areas where public transit lines abruptly vanish into nothingness. The brochures won't tell you why. The smiling hotel concierges will quickly change the subject if you ask. Because every local knows the golden rule of survival. Never speak of the shadows, lest the shadows take a sudden, violent interest in you. The peace you feel inside the official fan zones isn't a testament to law enforcement's superiority. It is the product of a temporary, highly lucrative truce, a Pax Mafia. The syndicates allow the tournament to proceed smoothly because a massive influx of foreign currency is incredibly good for business. But make no mistake, those invisible borders are razor sharp. Cross them by just a single step, and the illusion shatters instantly. Let's start in the heart of it all, Mexico City, a sprawling metropolis of 22 million people. By day, the historic center is a stunning tapestry of culture, but just a few subway stops away from the luxury hotels and historic plazas lies a neighborhood that even elite police forces refuse to enter after dark without heavy tactical gear and armored vehicles. Welcome to Tepito, also known to locals as Barrio Bravo, the fierce neighborhood. To call Tepito a slum is to fundamentally misunderstand what it is. Tepito is an independent, subterranean empire. It is a fortress that resisted Aztec emperors, fought off Spanish conquistadors, and today completely defies the modern Mexican state. It operates as the largest, most sophisticated black market in Latin America. Every counterfeit jersey, every illegal weapon, every stolen smartphone, and every ounce of contraband flooding the capital flows through the tangled veins of Tepito. The neighborhood is ruled with an iron fist by La Unión Tepito, a ruthless local cartel. Here, the state simply does not exist. The cartel provides the jobs, enforces the laws, and hands out the punishments. Deep inside this concrete labyrinth, you'll find sprawling shrines dedicated to Santa Muerte's Saint Death, a skeletal folk saint worshipped by narcos, smugglers, and those living on the violent edge of society. An anonymous local driver warned, "Foreign tourists always think they're being clever, coming here in search of cheap street food or bargain souvenirs. What they don't understand is that in Tepito, your GPS might work, but the law doesn't. Step across the red line, and you instantly become cartel property. In Tepito, there is a strict, universally understood code of silence. Cameras are strictly forbidden. If a naive tourist pulls out a smartphone to record a vlog or snap a selfie, they won't just get pickpocketed. The network of halcones, cartel lookouts stationed on every rooftop and street corner will spot them instantly. Tourists who violate this rule are swiftly escorted into windowless concrete buildings, stripped of their belongings, and in the most dangerous cases, are never seen on a public street again. To the cartels, tourists aren't football fans. They are walking ATMs. They control the unlicensed taxi networks waiting outside Estadio Azteca. When a drunk fan stumbles into the wrong cab, the driver won't take them to their hotel. Instead, they drive them to a secluded alley, hold them at gunpoint, and force them to empty their bank accounts. Locals call this the millionaire's ride, and during the World Cup, the cartels will be working overtime. But if Mexico City is about street-level extortion, our next host city operates on a much more terrifying, militarized, and systemic scale. Welcome to Guadalajara, the birthplace of mariachi music and tequila. It is the cultural soul of Mexico, offering a romanticized vision of the country that tourists adore. The Estadio Akron will host some of the most passionate matches of the entire tournament. However, what the FIFA broadcast will completely edit out is a chilling reality. Guadalajara is the undisputed headquarters and crown jewel of the CJNG, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Under the absolute rule of the elusive El Mencho, the CJNG has evolved into the most heavily armed, aggressive, and dangerous syndicate on the planet. This is not a street gang. This is a paramilitary organization capable of shooting down military helicopters with rocket-propelled grenades and deploying convoys of custom-built armored tanks. In Guadalajara, the danger isn't petty theft. It is the terrifying illusion of absolute safety. The cartel here doesn't operate in the shadows. They are the invisible landlords of the entire state. They allow the World Cup to proceed peacefully because they have effectively commercialized the event. The World Cup in Guadalajara will be a massive money laundering operation. The CJNG extorts or outright owns vast swathes of the avocado industry and the agave farms used to make tequila. When you book an expensive tequila tasting tour or stay in a luxury boutique hotel, there is a 90% chance a portion of your money is flowing directly into cartel bank accounts to fund their military hardware, a local tour guide shared. As long as you stay within the neon-lit perimeters of the official fan zones and gentrified neighborhoods, you are under the cartel's silent protection. You are a paying customer. But the moment you rent a car to explore the countryside or drive into the highlands looking for an authentic experience, you are trespassing on a heavily armed narco state. In these outer rings, cartel patrols in pickup trucks, mounted with .50 caliber machine guns, roam freely, openly defying the federal military. If a lost tourist takes a wrong turn off the highway and ends up in CJNG territory, there is no calling 911. The local municipal police in these remote areas answer directly to the men in the armored trucks. You are completely on your own, at the mercy of an organization that uses extreme violence not just as a tool, but as a branding strategy. And finally, there is Monterrey. Located in the north, it is the wealthiest city in Mexico, a glittering industrial hub of glass skyscrapers and massive corporations, boasting the stunning Estadio BBVA. From a distance, it looks like a modern tech hub in Texas. But Monterrey is an island of extreme wealth, surrounded by a vast, unforgiving, and lawless desert. And the highways leading in and out of this city harbor the darkest secret of all. To save money on skyrocketing flight tickets, thousands of fans from the U.S. and Canada will plan a classic road trip, drive across the border, and take the highway down to Monterrey. It sounds like a fun, adventurous journey. But to do this, they must navigate Highway 85, specifically the stretch connecting Monterrey to the border city of Nuevo Laredo. Locals do not call it Highway 85. They call it La Carretera de la Muerte, the Highway of Death. Over the past few years, hundreds of travelers, truck drivers, and entire families have simply vanished on this specific stretch of asphalt. No wreckage is found. No bodies are recovered. Just empty vehicles abandoned by the side of the road, doors left wide open, engines still running. Mexico currently has over 100,000 officially registered disappeared persons, and this highway is one of the primary black holes where they vanish. The cartels that control this desert, remnants of the Zetas and factions of the Gulf Cartel, operate with terrifying sophistication. They use military-grade jamming equipment to instantly cut off GPS signals and cell phone reception. A tourist driving down the highway will suddenly realize their Google Maps has frozen and their phone has 0 bars. Then, the trap closes. The cartels set up retenes falsos, fake police checkpoints. They use cloned police cruisers, complete with functioning sirens and official decals. The cartel members wear authentic tactical uniforms. When a car full of international tourists sees the flashing red and blue lights in their rearview mirror, their natural instinct is to pull over and comply. By the time they realize the men holding the AR-15 assault rifles are not police officers, it is far too late. The World Cup will see thousands of overly confident fans attempting these road trips, completely oblivious to the fact that they are driving directly into an active, brutal war zone, guided by GPS apps that cannot warn them of fake checkpoints or the ghosts that haunt the desert highway. Physical violence, kidnappings, and territorial wars are only the loudest, most visceral parts of the equation. To truly understand the horror of the no-go zones, we have to shift our perspective. The cartels are not just armed militias. They are highly sophisticated, multinational corporations. And right now, behind closed doors, they are preparing for the greatest economic boom of the decade, the World Cup underground economy. As millions of fans scramble to find accommodation in cities where hotel prices have skyrocketed by 500%, a massive shadow market is quietly expanding. When official hotels are fully booked, tourists will inevitably turn to unregulated online listings and social media groups. What they don't realize is that entire blocks of budget hostels, short-term apartments, and unregulated Airbnbs are silently owned and operated by shell companies connected directly to the syndicates. You might think you are securing a clever, cheap room for the night, but you are effectively checking into cartel property. The scope of their business model is staggering. It extends far beyond the sale of narcotics. The syndicates run elite counterfeiting rings, producing VIP tickets, official merchandise, and even stadium security credentials that are virtually indistinguishable from the real thing. They operate the massive, unregulated parking lots near the stadiums, charging exorbitant fees and threatening anyone who refuses to pay. They manage the chaotic networks of street food vendors lining the perimeters of the fan zones. In many neighborhoods, even legitimate, hard-working business owners, from bartenders and restaurant managers to taxi drivers, are forced to pay a derecho de piso. This is a mandatory, non-negotiable extortion fee, a mafia tax, just to be allowed to operate and serve tourists during the tournament. If a business owner refuses to pay the piso, their establishment is burned to the ground. Furthermore, massive sporting events historically trigger a catastrophic spike in human trafficking. The cartels control the underground networks of prostitution and forced labor that will inevitably expand to meet the demands of millions of tourists flooding into the cities. This is the most terrifying, unsettling truth of the 2026 World Cup. You do not need to buy illegal substances to fund the cartels. The money you spend on a seemingly innocent late-night taco, a cheap counterfeit jersey, a discounted taxi ride outside the official FIFA perimeter, or a budget room online, is being quietly and efficiently siphoned directly into the war chests of the underworld. Through your sheer presence and spending power, you are unknowingly feeding the very beast that holds the city hostage. The 2026 World Cup in Mexico will undoubtedly be a spectacular, awe-inspiring event. Millions of people will come, sing their national anthems, cry tears of joy,